Thank you for coming to this AMR Technical Seminar Series. This is day one in commemoration, celebration of our World Antibiotic Awareness Week. I would like to thank Dr. Runtit and Chulalongkorn University for hosting us today. Today we have our topic will be on Introduction to Essential Basic Concepts on Antimicrobial Resistance for future veterinarians. But of course, our professional veterinarians are very much welcome to attend, and we are live online as well on webinar. So we would like to encourage you to share this experience online, and the official hashtag is hashtag WAAW2019 or hashtag antimicrobial resistance. And please tag FAO Animal Health or FAO when you dispatch any social media post. And make sure it's public, okay? All right, so we don't have much time, but I'd like to get on with our business. And first off, we would like to proceed to our first speaker. But before we head to our first speaker, I would like to pass on to Dr. Ramon to introduce us to some wake-up exercise for today. Who here is familiar with Kahoots? Anyone familiar with Kahoots? I've got 2, 3 students who are familiar, and the professionals, all of them are familiar. So this is just a game. So please, who has a mobile phone? Who doesn't have a mobile phone? Who doesn't have a laptop now? Okay. So if you have your laptop or mobile phone with you, please go to your browser, or if you have the Kahoots app, call in your Kahoots app now. This is our gate pin. So enter the gate pin, which is 198442.
Yes, okay.
Are you there? Yes. So let me know who's not yet in Kahoots. Raise your hand. Okay, there's a few more people.
Nice.
Okay, if you're on Kahoots, not Kahoots, but Kahoots, please see number.
I think we're okay.
198442. Great. Do we have players?
Yes, a lot.
How many players do we have now? Okay. We have a total of 52 players online, increasing to 55. So to those who just came in, this is just a wake-up exercise. If you're familiar with Kahoot, go to kahoot.com, or if you have the app, please call the app. It's and then enter the gate pin 198442. Okay, Dr. Ramon, please take it.
All right. Good morning. So we will have a dry run. So hello. Okay. Thank you. Okay, so we will make this session informative, but most importantly fun. So we do this dry run. So is everyone ready now? Okay. So the first question is, okay, you may have heard a weird saying that meat tastes like chicken. So which edible insect actually does taste like chicken? Brown cockroach, grasshopper, dung beetle, or cicada?
Okay, this is the time that you need to comprehend the question and answer right away. So the quicker you answer, the higher your points. Okay.
Okay.
So
John,
number one, who's Jan? Who's Jan?
there's
Raise your
another
hand.
second
Jan,
question.
Jan, Jan. Where's Jan? Oh, she's
Okay.
missing.
Okay. There's
Oh,
another.
Jan.
Okay. The second
Okay.
question is: so scientists have studied public restroom stall use. The toilet used the least may have the fewest bacteria or germs. So which stall is this? First door on the right, first door on the left, any middle stall, or either stall furthest from the entrance.
Okay, we have about 78 people answering. Come on, keep it coming. We have 81 and no more.
Okay. So our winner, third prize is Dice. Second is Risa. And our champion is Bob.
Hello, Bob. Where are you? Come on down. There's no prize yet here.
Okay.
But, yeah. Thank you very much. So that ends our wake-up exercise today. But please be ready later because after each lecture, we will have this. And if you win, you will get a prize. Okay? All right.
Yep.
Okay, thank you everyone. So now I would like to welcome our first speaker. Our first speaker is from the FAO Regional Office for Asia and the Pacific. She's a vet, and she's from the Philippines, and she's the regional project coordinator on AMR at the RAP. So Dr. Mary Joy Jordan earned her PhD from Michigan State University, master's, and she's also has a master's of tropical veterinary science from James Cook University in Australia, and she was conferred a degree of veterinary medicine from the University of the Philippines at Los Baños in the Philippines. She's the regional project coordinator, as I said, for AMR at the Emergency Center for Transmariana Diseases, or the FAO Animal Health Division at LAB. May you please welcome Dr. Joy Gordon.
Good morning, everyone. Pleasure to be here. It's nice to be back in a lecture room. I used to teach for some time, I think 13 years, so it's good to be back with students. But for this morning, I hope you enjoyed the Kahoot. You listened very well. Some of the questions will be now relevant to the lectures that's going to be presented. So what my topic is about will be on bacterial resistance, strategies, and molecular mechanisms of resistance. As veterinarians, the best way that you will be able to address AMR is to understand the origins of antimicrobial resistance. I'm sure many of you have done microbiology, so it's just going to be a review of what you're already supposed to know, but in the context of AMR and also linking this to practices. Okay? So, my talk, we will be discussing firstly the projected impact of AMR, and then I'll be discussing a bit about the antibiotic targets. What makes antibiotic work, and then what makes them not work. So we'll first try to understand what makes antibiotic work, why does it work in bacteria and not in humans, and then what makes them resistant. And then we'll look at it from the animal-human environment perspective, like at the interface, and then addressing this with a One Health approach. So first, let me just describe here the evolution. In the early years, there's pre-antibiotic era. This was before when molds were first treated Some patients before they use molds or they use roots, and mortalities happen due to simple infections. This is the reason also why back then children are there. People have many, families have many children. They need to have a lot of spares because somebody has to plow the field and all that. And then came the antibiotics, which is the golden era. These addressed many of the infections, and they were treated immediately as wonder drugs. But then after this, post-golden era, then they started to see antimicrobial resistance because there's some misuse and in wrong use of the antibiotics, and we started to see antimicrobial resistance. Now, what is next will be on your hands. That's why it is very important that as veterinary students, you recognize your role in this phenomenon, because what will happen next will be on your hands. So just to emphasize the impact of projected AMR, by then you will be veterinarians by 2050, and it is foreseen that antimicrobial resistance will be stopped. It is projected at about 10 million deaths by 2050 if we don't do anything now. And it's also projected that Asia, where you are coming from, will be the most significant contributor for this antimicrobial resistance, primarily because of the population, animal dynamics, and all that. So you can see here that of that 10 million, almost half is projected to be coming from Asia. And not only that, there will be a lot of mortalities, there will also be some economic impact because of the antimicrobial resistance. This is due to extended costs because of hospitalization, deaths in animals, morbidity, increased mortality in people. So it's both public health and economic impact that we are dealing with. Now, to understand antimicrobial resistance and to be able to mitigate it effectively, can skip this. Next. So what I'll be discussing is primarily, we need to try to understand how antibiotics work, because you can take it doesn't affect your body, but it's supposed to either arrest the growth of bacteria or kill the bacteria. And different antibiotics have different targets. For example, and as you already very well know, I expect the structure of the bacteria. There's the cell, and then let's first start with the cell wall. There are certain antibiotics that target the cell wall. So this is the protective area, and you can just imagine that these antibiotics interfere with the structure of the cell wall so that they are not able to survive. So for example, beta-lactam antibiotics like your penicillin, they attack the beta-lactam rings. And of course, without this protective fence of the body of the cell will die and the cell cannot propagate any further. So these are the antibiotics that work on this. Glycopeptides are the same, lacetracin are the same. Some antibiotics are attacking the protein factory, so the ribosomes. You know the roles of the ribosomes. They decode the genetic code and they produce proteins. And what are proteins for? Proteins, as you know, are very important because these are where the enzymes come from, these are where the cellular structure comes from, and anything that interferes with the ribosome, of course, will either arrest or kill them. So these are the examples of antibiotics that attack the ribosomes. So for example, tetracyclines and aminoglycosides, they attack the 30S ribosome. This is a small component of the ribosome. Whereas the macrolides, your tyrosine, your other macrolides, there are also streptogramins and chloramphenicol, they attack the 50S, the bigger one. So the protein is not synthesized, and of course, the bacteria will die or arrest growth. Folate synthesis are also attacked by trimethylsulfonamide and sulfonamides. And DNA, some antibiotics address the DNA. And then what happens is that they are not able to propagate properly. So these are the actions or the targets of these common antimicrobial agents in an ideal world. So that's why it doesn't affect your cell. Because basically, your cell are not specific to these bacterial targets. So we have a bacteria that can either kill or arrest the growth of your bacteria. So, next one, please. Now, understanding that, this will allow us to understand the mechanisms of resistance. There are bacteria that can just reduce the ability of agents to enter the cell. So whatever is attacking the ribosomes, attacking your cell wall, this will not take place because they are already not able to enter the bacteria. There are also mechanisms by which they enter, but then they are extruded out. I think just to go into further details into this, let's go to the next slide, please. So first is reducing the ability of the agents. Of course, before an antibiotic can address the bacteria or do their thing in the bacteria, they first have to enter to be able to effectively do what they are supposed to do. But some bacteria, they gain the ability to reduce this capacity to let, so they put the gates in their cell wall so that they are not able to enter. Because some substances, they enter the cell through pores, through gates. By reducing these gates, they are not able to enter anymore. So what happens is that the antibiotics cannot even do their thing because they are not able to enter. And then some examples of these are, you will see with Pseudomonas aeruginosa with imipenem and Enterobacter antibiotic. We've seen this particularly in Visa or vancomycin intermediately resistant Staphylococcus aureus. You will see that the cells started to become mucoid. They become more sticky, like your snot, because they start to become changing their cell wall so that the antibiotic cannot enter them anymore. So, another mechanism. This is probably the most common mechanism that they do. So sometimes they are able to enter, antibiotics are able to enter the cell, but they are already immediately extruded out by efflux pump. So some bacteria, they gain the ability to produce efflux pumps in their cell wall so that even if they enter, they are extruded out. They are kicked out of the cell. So this is the typical mechanism of resistance. Apparently, because some bacteria, you know that antibiotics, they are also from bacteria, right? So this is the capacity, the normal thing they do, because sometimes the own antibiotic they produce inside their cell, they need to let it out. So some gain the ability to produce more efflux pumps. So even if the cells, the antibiotics are able to enter, they get kicked out, so they don't do their thing inside the bacteria. So this is probably one of the more common mechanisms of resistance. Some examples of this resistance is E. coli and other Enterobacteriaceae against tetracycline. So their resistance is found through efflux pumps. Enterobacteriaceae against chloramphenicol is also one mechanism, and Staphylococci against macrolizes streptogramins, and staph and strep pneumoniae against fluoroquinolones. So if you remember, these have different mechanisms of resistance: tetracyclines, chloramphenicol, streptogramins. They have, and fluoroquinolones. They have different mechanisms of resistance, if you recall. However, whichever cell or whichever bacteria that they enter that gain the capacity to produce efflux pumps, they get extruded out. Next slide. Now, this is one of the first phenomenon that they have seen in antimicrobial resistance. This is inactivation of agents via modification or degradation. usually some resistant bacteria gain the ability to generate enzymes that will break down the active component. So they see this in penicillinase. Next slide, please. So you see this in Enterobacter against chloramphenicol and gram-negative and gram-positive bacteria against aminoglycosides. So what happens is even if they are able to enter the cell, even if they are able to stay inside the cell, they are cut down by these enzymes that the bacteria are able to generate. Now, one other thing is that by modifying the antimicrobial target within the bacteria, we have mentioned earlier today that some bacteria have their own targets. By modifying these targets, they are also unable to act on the bacteria. And this modification is a common phenomenon where the antibiotic, even if they are able to enter, even if they are able to stay inside the cell, even if they are not broken down, they will not be able to do this because their target they cannot recognize anymore. So for example, some ribosomes, they modify their targets in the ribosomes, and the antibiotic, they will be lost. They cannot see anymore what their target is. And so again, this is a reason how the antibiotic resistance occurs. So this is what you see with MRSA or methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus and other beta-lactam diseases, Enterococci against vancomycin, Mycobacterium species against streptomycin, mutations in RNA polymerase and resistance to rifamycin, and mutations in DNA dirase. So these are some of the mechanisms by which this occur. So now the question is, how can a bacteria suddenly gain this capacity to generate these talents and skills to be resistant? You know the normal, you know that the process is that antibiotic has a target, they do their thing, they act on the bacteria, and also second point, you now know that sometimes the bacteria fights back and they are not able to enter, they are either kicked out of the bacteria, or they are broken down by the bacteria, or they are coated so that the bacteria change so that they're not able to attack the bacteria. How can this happen? And then, next slide, please. Well, the principles for this is also, again, roots back to the mechanisms of resistance, or the molecular mechanisms of resistance. You know that the gene codes for proteins, and the gene expresses the protein, and that's their normal cellular function. So what happens is that a bacteria with its normal capacity, they have normal cellular structure and function. The way that they produce their cell wall, the way they produce their ribosomes, the way they produce even their own DNA, these are all coded in these genes. And once these are coded, this is the normal process. However, when there is antibiotic pressure, or when there is a floating floating gene that enters the cell, or if there is a virus carrying a gene with resistance, they are able to modify. So what happens is that a bacteria which has an acquired particular resistance gene or mutation can actually have an altered protein, and this alteration leads to modified susceptibility. So when you say modified susceptibility, this is how they change, allowing the entry of antibiotics in their cell wall, or how they change to now they have efflux pumps, because some bacteria gain the genes for efflux pumps. Some bacteria gain the ability to produce enzymes because they gain the genes from other bacteria to produce proteins that allow them to produce efflux pumps. Or some bacteria gain the genes that will modify the targets of the antibiotic. And the sad part is that normal bacteria that are normally affected by these antibiotics, they are of course going to die, but those that have gained this, they are going to survive. And by this selection, this limited selection, that means that what you will be left with are those that have resistance. And then this just builds on and on and on. Some particular genes, once they acquire this, they stay. Some, if you remove the source, for example, if you're feeding an animal consistently, and then you remove that source of pressure, they can revert back because really they don't need this gene. Sometimes it's a lot of effort to maintain plasmids, or sometimes it's a lot of effort to maintain these extra things that they don't need. They only arm themselves when there is a war. So if you are constantly bombarding them, they will always have to be ready. But in some instances, even if you remove that weapon, even if you remove the antibiotics, once they gain this resistance, it stays. So that means regardless whether you remove the antibiotics in the feeds or not, whether you remove this, whether you correct, they are already there. But what you could do is address this such that you are going to reduce further building up. So in your generation, you are left with a problem created by the previous generation, where now you will have to be more strategic in the way that you are approaching treatment. That means when we were in vet school, the same way that you were, we were taught that, okay, just put the highest level because it will address all the respiratory infections in the farm. Now, it will require more skill on your part. And so you sitting in pharmacology class, you sitting in microbiology class, this means something for your future profession and on how you are going to be a veterinarian that knows to balance and to address this. Because this is the reason also why you have to understand these basic concepts. You can imagine what's happening for every decision that you will make in the future will have an impact to the next generation. So why is it important? Because any limitations on our part, for example, as veterinarians, there will be these resistant genes floating in the system, floating in the environment. So antibiotic resistance genes and antimicrobial resistance do not recognize species, do not recognize anywhere. Once they are created, they just circulate in the environment and then probably find another bacteria that they can attach to. So why is it important that as veterinarians you have to understand this? And is it your sole role? It is not only us that will have to be responsible. Your prudent use of antimicrobial resistance, your responsibility, will address antimicrobial resistance in the sector that we are responsible for. But of course, we also have to recognize that there are other people involved and should have their own responsibility. So for example, for the humans, we have their medical doctors are responsible, and for the plants, they are responsible. But what we do is we clean our background, we clean our own fence so that we reduce the antimicrobial resistance pressure coming from our side of the story. Next slide, please. Next slide. There's a substantial body of evidence to support the view that the emergence of AMR bacteria in livestock populations is connected to the emergence of AMR in bacterial populations that colonize or infect humans. We have seen this in Campylobacter jejuni, in E. coli infections following excessive use of antibiotics in poultry. So there's that evidence. However, it's also important to note that there are also claims that most emergence of AMR in humans originate really from human use, from the hospital use. There are also evidence that even from humans, antimicrobial resistance in animals come from humans. We've done this and we've seen MRSA in pigs coming from the humans themselves. So there's this evidence. But instead of pointing fingers, what we need to recognize is that both humans and animal sector are responsible for building this AMR. And that responsibility in both sides will be critical to addressing AMR. So as veterinarians, your role is to reduce the pressure coming from this side to address both human and animal needs. Now, how do we see this from an interface perspective? This means that for each sector, there are responsibilities attached. For animal health sector, our settings of concern will be the animal farms, animal hospitals, animal clinics. Human health will be hospitals, health facilities, homes. These are our respective forts. But we also have to recognize that in the middle is the interface where we are both responsible and we are co-sharing space. So this is the community, the environment, the market or trade setting, and homes of animal owners. So this is where both human and animal are combined. And then in terms of examples of issues of concern, for the animal health sector, there's more issues that are specific to the veterinary sector. And then there are human health sector specific. For example, for human health, multiple drug resistance and extremely drug resistant tuberculosis is a specific issue in human sector because the cell wall of mycobacteria is so thick, even genetic transfer will not probably happen. So it's specific to them. There are also resistance to antiviral drug, anti-HIV drugs that are specific to them that animal sector has nothing to do with. At the same time, mastitis in dairy cattle, resistance to antiparasitics, antibiotic resistance in animal pathogens, mostly these are attached to animal usage. But then again, there's the interface where you have community-acquired resistant infections such as VRSA or VRE. And there is always a potential for horizontal gene transfer. So anything we develop from this side will enter into this interface. And then what is the sectoral issues that contribute to global AMR issue? So you can see that there are similar for animal and human sector, for example, misuse. It's clear that either from human or animal, misuse can contribute to antimicrobial resistance. There's also circulation of drugs with suboptimal quality. That's why quality of drugs are important. So sometimes we see this proliferating in the market. Suboptimal quality of drugs will be very important in addressing AMR. And then lack of veterinary oversight. You know how many veterinarians will be needed in your country or worldwide, and we are in short supply of veterinarians. Much so, quality supply of veterinarians. And sometimes, because it's not cost effective to maintain a vet, sometimes farmers just decide their treatment, and we all know that. So the lack of veterinary oversight is a predisposing factor for antimicrobial resistance. And then poor waste management on our side is also leading to this. So at the same time, interface and controlled spillover from both these sides contribute at the interface of human and animal health. And then poorly managed environment, lack of containment, and anything that will reinforce potential for horizontal gene transfer. Like, for example, lack of cleanliness, lack of awareness. These are all contributing to potential spread and emergence of antimicrobial resistance. So AMR is a complex issue, as you probably have been told that it is a complex issue. And as a complex issue, we need a complex response. So this is where all expertise need to come together and address the issue. And this is why we need a One Health approach. So One Health approach is a collaborative effort of multiple health science professionals, not only veterinarians, nurses, doctors, environmental scientists, and all who are involved, working locally, nationally, and globally to attain optimal health for people, domestic animals, wildlife, plants, and our environment. So what is the ideal for us? It's issues and concerns in the fisheries and agriculture sector. There are also issues and concerns in the human health sector. But there are also shared issues and concerns. And this is where the One Health force will be very much needed. But don't forget that as veterinarians, you also have the responsibility to feed the hungry, to maintain health in animals, to make sure that their welfare is maintained, and to make sure that the public is also protected from diseases coming from animals. Not an easy job for veterinarians, but your training here in Chulalongkorn University is preparing you for that future. We hope that the others who are in the medical field are preparing that future for public. So this is the global public good that we are contributing to. It's not just addressing or taking care of pets. We're also taking care of the environment. We're also taking care of the greater public at large. So with that, I wish you good luck in your future as veterinarians, and hope that you find this backstory or some basic principles that will help you address antimicrobial resistance in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Now, do we have any questions on the floor? Yes, please.
I'm wondering, is it possible to use the bacterial phage to kill the bacteria instead of the antibiotic to solve the problem of the resistant crisis?
So tomorrow, we have a lecture on alternatives to antimicrobials. We have a bacteriophage expert doing the Mahout. The Mahout expert now, but bacteriophage will be talking about this tomorrow. But yes, this is already being done, actually, even in the past. However, we should be aware that not all alternatives, like not all bacteriophages will be, the same effect. So there needs to be science, and not because remember, viruses spread other things. So this is an alternative, and they have been exploring this for a long time. But to be able to appreciate bacteriophages and the principles better, tomorrow will be the first lecture on alternatives to antimicrobials, specifically on bacteriophages.
Okay, do we have questions online from our online audiences?
Any other questions on the floor? So are you ready now with your mobile phones?
Yes.
Yeah, I hope you all had a really good session. We talked about a serious session. So we'll take it lightly this time and go straight to a wake-up exercise.
Yes.
So if you have your Kahoot on again,
Yep.
game pin is 182-924.
So this time, there are prizes at stake.
Okay, ready?
Yeah.
Please join in. So,
Some of the questions are just implied from the lecture. This is how you will be able to manage antibiotics.
182-924, please take note of that. And we will start in 5 seconds.
Yeah.
4, 3, 2, 1. Stop.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Are you ready? Antimicrobials such as fluorophenols and third-generation cephalosporins should be used in veterinary practice for prevention of disease, treatment of bacterial infection, growth promotion, all of the above.
Is it coming? Nine seconds. 5,
4, 3, 2, 1.
Okay. Next question.
Next question.
Second question. All antimicrobials in humans are also used in animals, and all antimicrobials in animals are also used in humans.
True or false?
True or false? All antimicrobials in humans are also used in animals, and all antimicrobials in animals are used in humans. True or false? False. Because not all.
Boy, we have that wrong.
Last question.
Boy, congratulations. One last question. Which of the following about antimicrobial resistance is true? Okay, you just read it.
10 10 seconds. 5.
So none of the above is true.
All right, and
Okay,
winners.
so we have Into the Unknown. Who is Into the Unknown?
Third place.
And the first place is Jenny.
Jenny.
Who is Jenny? Where is
Jenny,
Jenny?
where's Jenny?
Where is Jenny?
Jelly.
Who's Jenny?
Who is
Jenny?
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 There.
Come down, please. Come down.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Okay, on behalf of Jenny.
On behalf of Jenny, whoever is Jenny, maybe
Bakit
shout.
naman?
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Joy. And that I hope you all had a really good session. That session was really informative. Bacterial resistance strategies and molecular mechanisms of resistance. And thank you very much for participating in our game and question and answer. Right now, we are going to the next topic. Our next topic is antimicrobial use in animals and AMR drivers in animal production. Our next speaker is Dr. Han Ziteng, a national from China working as AMR or AMU project officer for the AMR project at Regional Office for Asia Pacific. We call him Dr. Ziteng is we call him Alex. Holds a PhD degree from the University of Veterinary Medicine in Hanover in Germany. His experience includes local and systemic immunity following viral and bacterial infections. He's worked in FAO China before coming here in the region, and he's our micro guy. So please welcome Dr. Alex. Thanks.
Good morning, everyone. Kind of surprised that this photo is for introduce myself. Otherwise, I'll find a better one like Dr. George presented. And I used to be a student 7 years ago. And if I were you, and I think about translating delay, if I were you, I'll be more excited to this presentation because after that, there'll be coffee break. So, let's spend a few minutes to introduce this presentation and the antimicrobial use in animals and AMR drivers in production. There will be 5 parts included in this presentation, including including the introduction and historical background of AMU in animals. I would like to let you know in advance, please pay attention to this because all 3 presentations, all 3 questions at the end of the presentation will come from this session. And also extensive use of misuse of microbials and drivers, AMR, animal production. And then at the end, there will be same as usual, there will be an acknowledgement part. Okay. The introduction will going to be very short in this case, only 1 slide. So, although there are certainly unwanted downside, means the negative side of antimicrobials, we have to agree, we have to realize, there's cannot be denied that the introduction and the use of antimicrobials in animals has brought major impact, not only for animals, but also human health. Why is that? There's a point to our parts I would like to introduce you. First is the well-being. It contributes to well-being of animals because it's reduce the pain, suffering of the animals, treat disease, animal diseases, bacterial diseases, viral diseases as well. And second part, kind of important, is the economic impact, economic benefits of the food animal producers and so ensuring of the continuous production of foods, animal origins, animal derived food, and also protecting the livelihood and animal resources. So third part is also leads to more secure, safer health for the general public and to human health. Even more important because it can contribute to preventing and minimizing the shedding of zoonotic bacteria into the environment and the food chain. As Dr. Joy just introduced, there was zoonotic bacteria. I think most of you will definitely know that, all of them, that this bacteria can impact both human and animals. And also it's containing the potential large-scale epidemics that could result in severe loss of animal. So that's the reason that the antibiotics are so important to human animals. Okay. Just some background information to antibiotic use in animals. So actually, the first antimicrobial identified to be used in food animals is this one. Sulfonamide is the first one introduced to animal food animal medicine. And after post World War II, that legalized penicillin preparations was made available to veterinarians. So they are used to treat the disease, treat bacterial disease, especially for this one, used as the inflammation infusion or treatment of bovine hepatitis. And also that antibiotics are also given to food animals for growth promotion and for prophylactic medicines. Because in 1948, two scientists, obviously, Science and Drew, these two scientists accidentally discovered that the cellular remains of the streptomyces, this is one type of antibiotic, show that those has effect, so contribute to animals. So just add a little bit more information right here that this is the timeline right here. So during the World War II, there was lack of food, not enough food supply. So there was food shortage that led to price hike. Price is very high for especially the livestock products, meat, pork, that leads to public operation. But short of food, lack of food, and higher price, so people are thinking that. So there's more campaigns or activities for families that how we can raise more food. Give it to people soldiers life, and also to the public. And post World War II, there's more interest on research aimed at keeping the food supplies, especially for meat and nose-based risk. And this at that moment, ATP, this antibiotic growth promoter, was discovered. That was an accident. That was a research led by some scientists who originally looking into the vitamin B12. They are looking for that kind of research. But it turned out to be figured out that the using anti-shell of this one type of antibiotic led to a whole new industry and whole new application of antibiotics in animals. And here's the information I can share with you. I think most of you will be able to publish your scientific work in the future. This is
This
Publish your scientific work to a international peer-reviewed journal. For now, that is more fancy than that, but this is the information. This what it looks like back in 1940s or back in many years ago. So there's a lot of information here, titles, authors, many information, but I would like to have you. So here's the antibiotics I mentioned before, and this is a positive, the control group. We can see they use different dosage of these antibiotics, 0.5, 5.5, 10, and up to 30. And then to the two dyes, they added it into two types of dyes, and the weight gain from each dye group, you can see a significant increase here in both dye groups. So, and they found that the chicks receiving a supplement of these antibiotics fermentation grows 24% more rapidly than the liver extract, which is another resource of vitamins. And they later realized these after growth enhancement was actually not because of the vitamin, it's because the cellular remains of antibiotics for growth as a growth enhancement. And in this slide, there's a subsequent discoveries and availabilities of new antibiotics were identified in 1950s, and widespread these kind of antibiotics widespread therapeutic usage for a multitude of infectious disease in emerged of all animal species. And I think as I just introduced in the previous slides, an antibiotic shows growth enhancement effect in the food animals, and this discovery opens a kind of whole new market to the area. It's multi-billion dollars, and it is today, even up to today. So, and transforming of the utility of the antibiotic for animal use as a medical substance, and from being powerful medical substance to a neutral commodity. And because the amount of the antibiotics we use for growth promotion is extremely small, means that you use small amount of antibiotics, you can significantly contribute to weight gain. But very cost benefit or very high cost performance. So that's the reason that the effect regardless
Yeah. Play. Yeah. Okay.
We can't connect.
Can you reload again your
Reload
Kahoot?
again.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry about that.
Sorry,
49347.
the connection.
What is it called?
No, it will be different code.
4, 9.
No, it will be different code.
It won't be different.
Oh, it will be different. So
Yes. Okay. Go.
Yes. So you reload again.
Reload.
3075. I'm gonna give it a try.
Yeah. It's
Both
308
join.
075.
Okay. Good.
308 075.
44. 44, 57. How are you? Good. Happy New Year.
Okay, good. Yeah. Okay, let's start in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1.
Okay.
Oh, I like
3 questions. Are you ready? Here it is. In which year did Europe take action to ban antibiotics for growth promotion? Is it 2002, 2004, 2006, 2008? That's all right. No answer. Okay, just pick one. After the
Yeah. 2000.
1976.
So this is for growth promotion. For growth promotion, I'm for growth promotion.
Okay, so I will give it to you.
apparently it was like the gaps between me and my colleague. And I was like, the question is not clear.
No, but
Actually,
I-
what I want to ask is firstly take action. At the very beginning, it should be 1972 to 1974. But in 2006 was like Europe.
But yeah. But that's the question. That's correct. That's correct.
Alright, so
Okay,
if you answer 2006, then we'll count it.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay, next question.
You
In
will have-
2015, the global action plan on AMR was adopted by the WHO, OIE, and the Europe. True or false? Is that true or false? 2015, they adopted the global action plan.
Correct.
You got 8 answers. Very good.
May I have a Google for boss?
Only 13 is okay, man. Oh, really?
Okay. Antimicrobial was firstly developed for animals to use as growth promoters in dual forms. Firstly developed as true or false. You got 80 answers. 81? I think you're
Very good. Okay, let's see who won. Third is Well.
well, this answer.
Gigi
GGGG. 4.
and
For number 1.
this one. Real Alex.
Alex.
Real Alex. Yeah.
Real Alex.
Real Alex. Real Dr. Alex. China coffee. Oh my. Hey. Thank you, Real Alex. From Dr. Alex. Okay, guys. Oh, thank you very much for that. Right now, we'll give you a little bit of rest, but you can stay here if you want. And for those who want coffee, you can head out to the foyer for coffee. But we will resume after in about 10:30 we resume. Yeah. So toilet break, whatever, do whatever you want.
Sorry, are you okay? Yeah. Can talk now.
Can you just pause?
And then,
Oh yeah.
that's fine.
So
Yeah.
representing the FAO, Food and Agriculture Organization of United Nations. So today we are going to talk about the AMR actions in the region and from the view of tripartite. So it was also mentioned a lot during this earlier this morning. AMR is also one health issues. AMR is growing concern of global health issues. So, as you heard, as you saw this slide before, Joey already mentioned, AMR is a growing concern globally, and especially for now, AMR is causing 700,000 deaths for now, but this is highly underestimated number. And by 2050, we are expecting over 10 million deaths in the world. And our region, Asia Pacific, will be responsible for half of those deaths. And this 10 million deaths is higher than combining cancer and deaths from cancer and diabetes. So now is the time we need to tackle for the AMR related issues, and you are the future of this combating with for the AMR.
Okay, thanks, Judy. Oh yeah, I'll leave one of those. So really just to give some structure to why AMR is a One Health issue. Joy showed a slide this morning that basically showed that AMR is everywhere and constantly circulates. So from animals to humans, from humans to environment, from environment to humans, from environment to animals, spreading all the time. We really don't know how much pharmaceutical waste is entering wastewater without on-site treatment, because there is not enough monitoring that is done from these manufacturing sites. Up to 80% of antimicrobial agents are excreted as active residues, both from humans and from animals. So even though we take them and we excrete them, they are still active within the environment. 14% of humans globally are carrying ESBL-producing E. coli in their feces from the data that is available. Globally, according to the Joint Monitoring Programme, 61% of human excreta is not managed safely. And finally, on water, about 30% of people do not have access to safely managed water. So there is huge potential for circulation with residues and resistance through the environment. What should I be pointing this?
Yeah, here.
Are you, Ramon? Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so WHO, because I suppose arrogantly, the human health sector feels that human health sector is the apex, is the ultimate goal of any work. So the drivers are not just about One Health. There are wider priorities for WHO, of which One Health is a major part. One is universal healthcare. WHO is committed to helping countries around the world to achieve universal healthcare. So there are very specific medical and medical facility objectives that are part of this process. So that's dealing with the overprescription of antibiotics and dealing with poor infection control in hospitals and clinics. So under universal healthcare, looking to address those, that's very specific to the human sector. But then under One Health, there are issues of waste management and clinical waste, especially infectious waste, and the overuse of antibiotics in livestock and fish farming. The antimicrobial resistance also presents a huge threat to the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals, particularly in relation to issues of food security and the lack of new antibiotics that are being developed. The governance for all these three areas is somewhat different as well. So, under national level is the national action plans that have been developed by all countries in this region, not least from Thailand, which has an excellent plan in place and which has been implemented. At the regional level, a lot of the focus is on harmonisation of surveillance and regulations, and at the global level is to enhance research and development to develop new antibiotics and diagnostics. Again, we've been stealing slides from each other, and this is one that Joy showed earlier. This is Joy's slide, so I stole it. For One Health, just to go through again what One Health is the collaborative effort of multiple health science professionals together with their related disciplines and institutions working locally, nationally and globally to attain optimal health for people, domestic animals, wildlife, plants and our environment. Traditionally, sectors, I'm sure you all learn this as soon as you start working, and maybe already experienced it, is that so often you get involved in your own activities, in known areas of work, and you work in isolation. One Health is trying to overcome those issues, but still recognizing that you really need the expertise that is available within individual sectors. But traditionally, the human, animal, and environmental sectors work differently, and certainly, again, as Joyce said, that for the agricultural sector, this takes place in specific settings, such as farms. There are specific issues and specific concerns related to agricultural sector. On the human side, exactly, specific settings, hospitals, health facilities, homes, specific issues, such as multi-drug resistant TB and resistance to antivirals, and specific concerns on the abuse, misuse, quality, and access to medical care. These red circles are really where One Health takes place, about the shared settings, the shared issues, and the shared concerns. And it's all about communication, collaboration, sharing information, and understanding what the links are, and the policy and implementation activities that are required across these boundaries to help prevent this transfer. Can you go with you?
Yeah. So honestly, we have been talking about activities that we are doing in implementation of national action plans, global action plans, maybe global strategies of one. So, but we don't know whether these things are going on well or not. So that is where it is important to have. That is where this monitoring and evaluation comes. Probably you might have heard what is monitoring. So monitoring is done by the implementer, whether it is on track or not. And evaluation is done by somebody outside. I mean, whether these people who are implementing has done the correct job or not. So, I mean, when it comes to reporting, what we have shown here is the monitoring results reported by the countries. So this is, self-reported results of implementing these national action plans. So, you know, I mean, to implement the national action plan, they have to have their own setup, they have to generate their own data, they have to do reporting. And to do reporting, so we need a lot of infrastructure, systems, and all these things. So you can see, number one is under One Health integrated approach to implementation of MAP. So you can see the green countries, they have a very good system in place to integrate all these things, and some of our countries in the region are doing quite well. Then light green is joint working on issues. So you can see some of the countries still are working together. I mean, without at a lesser level of integration, but when it comes to issues, I mean, they are working together. And also, there are some countries
working with clear PORs, but still the systems have to be developed to bring all these systems together. And also, there are some countries there is no formal coordination, so you see, I mean, still we have to do a lot. So this is the situation at the moment as far as NAP implementation is concerned in the region.
So we would like to introduce you what we are doing so far in our region as a tripartite. So as you already heard, 2015 National Global Action Plan was adopted by WHO, OIE, and FAO. And it has 5 different strategic objectives. The first one is information, education, and training. The second one is surveillance and monitoring. The third one, reduction of infection. And the fourth one is legislation and optimization of use. And the fifth one is sustainable investment for alternatives and the reduce of antibiotic use. Then, FAO also published FAO action plan for targeting to 2016 to 2020. FAO action plan has 4 pillars. Awareness, which is supporting the objective number 1, and evidence is also supporting the surveillance part of objective number 2, and the good practice is supporting objective number 3 to 5, and we have also governance overarching all the objectives. And also OIE to support some animal health sector. They also published the OIE strategy for AMR and prudent use of antimicrobial. The first pillar is the improvement of awareness and understanding, which is correlating with Global Action Plan objective number 1. And the second one is strengthening knowledge through surveillance and research, also linked with objective number 2. And the third one is encouraging implementation of international standards, which is covering objective number 3 and 4 both. Then fourth one is supporting good governance and capacity building, which both also correlate with objective number 5. So our global partners are working together for AMR-related issues. I hope not. So let's start with objective number 2, which is improving awareness and understanding. From the agricultural sector, we try to do the AMR awareness, increasing the AMR awareness, and also we promote a good production practice for animals, and hopefully we also do the good practice for plant sector too. And also the promotion of global action plan on AMR. Also for the human health side, the same thing, promotion of the global national action plan, as well as we had a race to a million pledges. I did one sign as well. Then there are many stories, AMR related one. Then coming to the joint action, we had celebrated joint World Antibiotics Awareness Week in 2016, 17, 18. And now this event is also one of the ongoing celebration of World Antibiotics Awareness Week. We also have a shared platform for Turkey. You can find lots of communication material on each of the organization's website. And also we published some joint statement. And this year, remarkably, our tripartite plus other partner, we also produced one video, which you will see later after this presentation. As you can see, as I explained, some of our awareness campaigns are also published in social media. And OIE also had some We Need You kind of campaign. You can see lots of very informative videos and materials through the OIE website. And this is the pledge signed by multiple people, like 100,000 people. some years, and WHO also published lots of useful communication materials.
Yeah, I mean, as it was already mentioned, so actually OI is mainly working on awareness and also strengthening the veterinary services of countries to different needs, and also support the countries to improve reporting of antimicrobial usage of countries. So this is one of the most useful and used toolkit that OI has developed. So it is the communication materials. Actually, OI supports member countries to translate these communication materials to their own languages and to print. So, I mean, at this moment, we are working with 6 countries targeting this year's antibiotic awareness week in this Asia Pacific region. I mean, it is to give support to countries to penetrate into the, deeper levels or bottom levels of the countries where antibiotics are being used as treatments, prophylaxis, and even as growth promoters. So we want to give the correct message to the users that antibiotics are important tools and they have to be used after a good kind of diagnosis, and they should not be used as growth promoters or prevention. And there are a lot of important antibiotics, critically important for human health and veterinary services. So animal health people should not use those human critically important antibiotics as personalized treatments or animal medicine. So that kind of messages are, delivering through these materials. And also, in addition, we do a lot of campaigns in countries to change their risk behaviors. So you might have heard in your public health lessons that there are certain tools to identify what are the risk behaviors of people and how to motivate people to change those behaviors. So that kind of things are going on, and we are working hard to make people understand how important antibiotics is and what are the responsible and prudent use of antimicrobials. So then strengthen evidence. So then, as well as we do capacity building, then we have to provide them access to do some access to the technical materials. Like the strength of OI is international animal health standards. Probably you might have heard about international standards of animal health. So one is the referral organization to World Trade Organization, and if you go to the OI website, you can see all these standards. So there are a lot of standards related to this antimicrobial resistance and doing then antimicrobial resistance surveillance, antimicrobial usage surveillance, and things like that. So to help them as well as to support them to pilot these AMR surveillance activities as well as to help them to report. Then about human health sector, you might have heard about tricycle. I think David will explain later much more about this tricycle. Then and also you might have heard about global antimicrobial surveillance system GLASS. So what the countries do, they do surveillance, passive surveillance in human health sector, and they report to GLASS, and that is the sharing of data. So what OIE supports is mainly to collect data on antimicrobial usage and share it through OIE reporting system and sharing other organizations. So and also WHO is doing antibiotic stewardship and consumption monitoring. They have produced a lot of tools, and countries are doing different studies to understand what are the patterns and what are the level of consumption of antimicrobials at country level. Then there are a lot of activities together, mainly the joint risk assessment which has been planned to be done. Then also develop integrated surveillance systems. Probably you might have heard things like, LSHTM, kind of framework of doing antimicrobial surveillance. So, using all these things, human and animal health sector plus environment are doing a lot of activities to see what is going on in the world. So you can see basically the guidelines. So these are the tools that could be used at country level. So I think FAO has already launched this one yesterday. Unfortunately, I could not be here yesterday. So and also I think David will explain about tricycle very well. And you might have heard about Atlas. So when it goes to the country level, you have to have some kind of assessment of their laboratory capacity and antimicrobial resistance surveillance. That is the tool that I have been using. About the glass, I have been talking about global antimicrobial surveillance system. So that is the reporting system for AMR surveillance data at country level. And also, there are a lot of other activities like laboratory assistance, awareness improvement, behavioral change. Basically just to give a kind of overview of, at glance, but you can have some understanding of what is going on and what are the available tools. Probably, I may not be able to explain all these tools, but this is just a kind of support for you to go back to the websites and just check what are the available tools and guidelines to do antimicrobial surveillance, maybe AMU surveillance, and AMR surveillance, reporting, all these things. So this is, I told you that OIE is supporting to do the reporting of antimicrobial usage of the member countries. So when it comes to this reporting, it is mainly done by the veterinary services of the countries. So that is why OIE is quite concerned on strengthening the veterinary services of countries. So it starts from the day one competencies. So, as a veterinary graduate, there are international standards that you should achieve. Once you graduated as a veterinary student, once you start practicing as a veterinarian, there are certain competencies because everything depends on the strength of the veterinary service and how you do disease diagnosis, how you prescribe, how you collect data, how do you report all these things. So that is why veterinary services improvement is quite important. Then when it comes to veterinary services, they have to implement these international standards. Because it is kind of an agreement when they enroll OIE. Actually, OIE has 182 member countries. When they join OIE, they sign some kind of a organic statute. So it is mainly with the transparency. So transparency means whenever you have this notifiable disease in your country, you got to report. So it appears in the OIE website, and then everybody will know what kind of transmissible diseases or notifiable diseases are available in different countries. So, likewise, the countries are supposed to report antimicrobial usage as well to the OIE. So, time to time, OIE conducts surveys, and there are three reporting options. First option is just report the quantities of different chemical types. So then if you go to another stage, so then you identify that what chemical is being used on what angle. So when it goes to the third level, so it will be further detailed into what chemical is being used on what angle, on what purpose, to each route. But I think no country in this region still gone up to that level, but still OIE supports the countries to go to this level. So these are the reports of different years, what OIE gathered from member countries. They publish as reports so that you can refer to get some understanding of what kind of chemicals are they used for what purpose, maybe therapeutic purpose, prophylactic, or promoters. I mean, these reports will give you that understanding. Because, I mean, we know that this AMR is supposed to have some kind of a link with usage of antibiotics. We know that maybe we say that like underdosing, overdosing, indiscriminate use is linked to AMR. So this will give some idea that how the countries are using antibiotics and animal health. So these are the tools that OIE develops to disseminate different information. It is not only AMR or AMU, it is about Nordic fiber diseases and different other things as well as. So at this moment, so we are presenting a lot of information about antimicrobial resistance and usage. So this is the support which OIE extends to countries to implement international standards at country level. You know, OIE standards, it is not easy, all of a sudden to any country. Because, the country should have some kind of a capacity. They should have a very good, strong veterinary service. They should have a legal framework. And also they should have a good laboratory network for diagnosis. With all these things only, you can implement international standards to the maximum. But still, OIE supports countries to understand what are these international standards and how the countries can implement. So, OIE has a network of laboratories, a set of experts to support countries, as well as when it comes to, time to time, OIE used to update international standards. So, whenever OIE prepares the drafts of international standards, those standards are being circulated with the member countries. So, in addition to standards related to antimicrobial usage or resistance or surveillance, there are a lot of other animal health standards, not only for terrestrial animals, even for aquatic animals, and even for bees. So, OIE helps countries to do kind of understand, what these standards and how they can send their comments to OIE. That is the purpose of this OIE consulatory project.
Thank you. So just a few words on this tricycle project that particularly mentioned. So this is a project going on in Indonesia, Nepal, and India. For Indonesia, for some time now, they're quite advanced. This project is really to work jointly with the laboratories of the Ministry of Health, Ministry of Agriculture, and Ministry of Environment. There are very different capacities between the laboratories under these ministries. It tends to be historically the Ministry of Health has. Everyone all right? Don't kick the bucket. Okay. So traditionally, Ministry of Health has been extremely well resourced and has been way ahead. Ministry of Agriculture, through Joy and Atlas and lots of other work, is catching up fast. And Ministry of Environment is the laboratories there have traditionally been somewhat underfunded, despite their really important regulatory function in this area. So the idea of this project really is to get the laboratories learning from each other, to develop common approaches, common methods, and to understand the nature of the problem of AMR resistance. So it's looking particularly at ESBL-producing E. coli, starting off with the identification of patients in hospitals who have showing ESBL-E. coli. And then the project is using whole genome sequencing, is using epidemiological methods to try and look at the relationships between infection within the patients and within the markets where they get their products, and from the effluent systems both from the markets, from the hospitals, and from the patients themselves. So through the whole genome sequencing to try and understand whether there are direct relationships, and to try and see if there is any movement. It's not fully expecting to do so. The main point is to get laboratories working with common methodology to work together over some of these issues. And this is what the really exciting side to the project. It remains to be seen what kind of results will come out, but it's very much about the process and the working together. So we move on now to objective 3, reducing infection. This traditionally really has been very much focused under human health, and particularly through WASH, water, sanitation and hygiene, in healthcare facilities. So lots of publications being produced on that area, hand hygiene and AMR, and on infection prevention, control and surveillance. There was a global survey where everyone was invited to report their hygiene habits and standards online, and that should be reporting later this year to try and understand how good we are as a species on this planet in terms of our hygiene. Not very good by all reports. Really, it's trying to look at how we apply many of these standards on the agricultural side. So, Takiri has just been talking a lot about the standards, so it's to encourage implementation of those standards, to build the capacity to implement, and to develop guidance on farm biosecurity and disease prevention and control. So this is traditionally something that has been very much isolated between these two sectors. But a lot of work now is being done through the tripartite to try and look at what agriculture can learn from the human WASH side and to look at some of the impacts of this work. So on the infection prevention and control, these are some of the standards that Takiri was talking about from OIE on the terrestrial and the aquatic animal health codes. FAO is also been looking at a lot of lessons in terms of biosecurity and improvements in pig production. And WHO is doing quite a lot. This is the survey that I was talking about, which closed in July and should be reporting quite soon. But there is quite a lot of work now that is being done in this particular region to try and incorporate infection prevention and control to maximize it within health services. As you might have seen in my introduction, I come from an environmental background, an environmental health background. I am not a medical practitioner. And one of the things that we have found very frustrating, I have found very frustrating in my 9 years working with WHO, is the lack of attention that is given by the health sector to infection prevention and control. And I am so happy to see that primarily out of AMR, that the health sector is really beginning to take notice and really beginning to realize that this does play a huge role. So this region, Southeast Asia region of WHO, is really beginning to try and figure out how they can deal with this. And in terms of their commitment to deliver universal healthcare, they are incorporating WASH and infection prevention and control within their strengthening frontline services. And they are doing for each country and on a regional level. These dashboards for every country. So really trying to show at a very quick level, one is change over time, but also is difference between countries about clean facilities, safe facilities, and effective services. So it's really looking at the facilities, the performance, and what impact that will have on the services. So it does include information on WASH in hospital and non-hospital locations, but also looking at regular electricity, vacancy rates of staff, whether essential medicines are available, whether there is an infection prevention and control focal point, whether there are policies, whether there are national guidelines, etc. And then looking at the indications in terms of healthcare-acquired infections, children being prescribed antibiotics just for a common cold, antenatal care coverage, and various other issues. So some of these numbers, less is better. Some of these numbers, higher is better. Green is good, red is not so good. And so it's really encouraging to see that the health sector is really beginning to take on board infection prevention and control. And this is something that also, that through the tripartite, we are sort of increasingly trying to work with the agricultural sector to also deliver in this area. Again, carrying on this theme, WHO has produced guidelines on infection prevention and control within hospitals. So this is very much for staff, for nursing staff, and for doctors, and also for support staff, ancillary staff. But again, WASH is all the way through these guidelines, and very satisfyingly, it's also a core component of the WHO quality of care during childbirth standards. Levels of maternal death during childbirth are still frustratingly and sadly still high in many countries within the region. And a lot of this can be down to quality of services and hygiene within those services. So quite a lot of focus is being done in this area through these tools, looking at the state of WASH in healthcare facilities, looking at practical steps to achieving access and improving healthcare, and a toolkit for individual healthcare facilities to see how they can improve their facilities.
Yeah, once again, me. So, I already told you about we are collecting as OIE from all member countries plus some of non-OIE member countries the data on antimicrobial usage, and our target is to establish this global platform for AMU data. So actually, at this moment, OIE is working a lot on improving the reporting system to make it a kind of web-based system, and also link to our World Animal Health Information System, so that this information can be accessed by public and other users. Then, and we try to understand usage at farm level. Actually, FAO is doing a lot of activities in regional countries to understand, doing cap surveys and farm level studies on antimicrobial usage. Also, we both organizations do a lot of activities to improve the understanding of finding implementers on antimicrobial usage, do how to do antimicrobial usage surveys, how to collect data, how to report data, and actually the primary purpose of doing all these things, this data to be used by countries, because usually we collect a lot of data, and we think that this data is collected just to be reported to international organizations like WHO, FAO, OIE. Actually, the primary focus is not that. It is to be used in their own countries, because if you don't know what is the antimicrobial usage pattern in their own countries, they will not be able to take decisions based on evidence. So this is actually the evidence for making decisions, or maybe policy improvements, policy changes, regulatory improvements. So that is why we do all these things, just to help countries then to share regionally and globally, as early warning at the global level. Then it is same with the human health sector. WHO is doing a lot of activities to support the countries to improve monitoring and reporting of antimicrobial usage at the hospital levels, at community levels, and doing a lot of stewardship programs. Because probably you understand what I mean by stewardship. So after some time, I mean, there are no new molecules of antibiotics were developed. So we have to safeguard all these existing molecules for the future. So that is why these stewardship programs are there. So at different levels, hospital levels, at different community levels. Then about the integration of these two things, I mean, tripartite is working hard on bringing all these things together. I mean, finally, we are talking about integrated surveillance systems. So I think still time to go to that level. But I think tricycle is a good start for this integrated surveillance in antimicrobial resistance. So once again, actually this is to show you, I mean, this is, I already told you, and these are some of the findings of this AMU database. I mean, once the fund reports to OIE, so we can understand what kind of antibiotics are being used in these countries, whether they are using for treatment purposes, or whether they are being used for growth promoters, or maybe they are used and either for prevention or, I mean, maybe prophylaxis. I mean, sometimes we still find most of these therapeutic antibiotics are being used in most of the countries as prevention and as growth promotion. So these are some of the activities we organize at country level to improve the capacity of the veterinary services to do this data collection and reporting. And also in those, I mean, country level activities, it is one thing to understand what is the value chain or maybe distribution chain of antibiotics at country level. I mean, from where you can gather this data and from where you can regulate these things and what are the deficiencies of the country level regulations. So that kind of activity also going on at this moment with the regional countries. Then this is, I mean, I told you that WHO is doing in human health side this AMU, antimicrobial consumption and usage studies. So this is the report WHO produced with related to, I mean, with regard to this microbial usage and consumption in the human health sector.
Now we are on the final strategy. I would like to apologize for the technical glitch of the system. We were informed that the webinar, the sound quality is not very good. Apologize for that. The last objectives is governance and sustainability. It is very much important to convince higher level advocacy. So without moving the political level movement, we cannot really change much. So this pillar is supporting that kind of thing. So from the agriculture sector, we are also supporting the regional platforms such as ASEAN and SAARC. So we try to strengthen the legal base of productive use of antimicrobials as well as AMR mitigation. And it's also important to understand the economic drivers for the antimicrobial resistance and high-level advocacy. The WHO side, from human health side, also they are conducting review of regulation and sharing the best practices and analyzing the gaps in compliance and enforcement and situation analysis, as well as we also, WHO together with FAO and OIE, we helped countries to develop national action plan in many countries. Together with tripartite, we work on AMR, and we try to enhance intersectoral collaboration when addressing AMR issues, as well as we supported developing national action plan, and as well as we try to support reviewing the national action plan as well. So, again, high-level advocacy is important to make this happen. We have some publication, OIE, FAO, and WHO. And WHO Southeast Asian Regional Office also published the situation analysis of implementing the National Action Plan from their member states. And also, FAO recently published policy review papers. Those are all available online. If you are interested, you can go in and have a look. We are continuing our support to the member countries on addressing the AMR-related issues. Now I would like to introduce you about our tripartite collaboration. In our region, we are establishing regional tripartite coordination group. We together FAO, OIE, and WHO. In the global level, we have global tripartite executive as well as tripartite secretariat. And in our region, in the Asia Pacific, FAO, OIE, and WHO, we are establishing tripartite one-time coordination group. Actually, we already established, but still formalization is a bit pending. And we also have a country level of focal point. Together, we work together addressing One Health related issues. Not only, it's not limited to the tripartite, we are also engaging time to time UN environment program, so-called UNEP, as well as other agencies if needed. We are seeking to use our close link for human and animal health sector, and also food safety and security issues, as well as agriculture like plants health sector, aquatic animal health sector, and environmental health sector to develop One Health response to helping our member states when we are addressing the health threat. This is actually all we have for today. And now is the time to play our new, before the quiz, not yet.
Is that a question?
So we would like to show you the video we developed for this week. YouTube.
Yeah. Okay.
Zero.
Death among humans and animals, which plague.
Go back.
Yeah.
Once upon a time, the Earth was a huge playground for us bacteria. Those were joyous days. We were wild and free, helping or hurting people and animals as we wished. Then one day, humans invented antibiotics, a weapon that took this power from us and put them in control. We were no longer free to cause pain, disease, and death among humans and animals. But we waited, and humans made a fatal mistake. They used these precious medicines indiscriminately in humans, plants, and animals. And some of us realized we could develop a defense to these antibiotics. Humans call this phenomenon antimicrobial resistance. We call it taking back control. Now we, the disease-causing bacteria, can spread wider and faster where disorder, dirt, and disorganization reign. It's great for us when you have poor hygiene and don't use water and soap. We love when you flush your unused antibiotics down the sink or toilet. They join our already huge colonies in your wastewater and river systems and make us stronger. Poorly managed hospitals are good for us. In these places, we're free to multiply and become new ruthless killing machines. Antibiotics given to animals not to control or treat disease, but to make them grow faster, create new armies of bacteria that become increasingly resistant. The beautiful thing is that the simple contact between infected animals and humans can allow us to spread. We can also circulate in contaminated food, on plants, in the soil, and in water. We can be everywhere. We've regained some of our old powers. However, I am becoming very worried. Our enemies are starting to work together. International organizations and countries are starting to coordinate all sectors, from human, animal, and plant health to agriculture and food safety, to halt our glorious expansion and stay on top. They explain to people that we can be stopped by using antibiotics, as per doctor and veterinarian's advice, and not for growth promotion, by adequate wastewater management, and by having proper hygiene and cleanliness at the hospital and at the farm. Humans could become wiser and keep us down. A disaster. Imagine if everyone listened to their advice. I am no longer safe. My ability to resist antibiotics could disappear. Don't let antimicrobial resistance take control. Be responsible when using antibiotics.
So this concludes our presentation for today.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Nikki and David. So this time, I would like to open the floor for questions. I hope you found it useful to listen to the tripartite, WHO, FAO, and OIE, about what they're doing in terms of addressing antimicrobial resistance. If you have any questions, please throw it in. Any questions? No one? I'm pretty sure you will everything that was told today will be very useful along the way in your profession as a veterinarian. If not, let's have a little bit of fun.
They're excited.
So this is the game pin. It's 334 018. I can't see soon. Okay. Are we gaining players?
Your fake Alex is playing.
Okay, so our the topic was on actions to address AMR. Justin Bieber is in the house. Where's the real Alex? Is she still here? Yes. And who is here? And Dr. Strange. Okay, guys.
Okay.
Those fan of J-pop and K-pop, we have a Japanese and a Korean in the house. So any questions about that will be after lunch. Okay.
Okay.
Shall we start?
Okay.
Fire away. Are you ready? 3, 2, 1, go. Who is not a member of the tripartite? The SHIELD, WHO, FAO, OIE, let's throw in the Avengers. Yeah, this is hard, so we need 20 seconds for this. For those who don't know, that's Dr. Tedros, Dr. Monique, and one glasses.
Okay, question 2.
Those who wait what percentage of AMR anti-revelators are exactly What percentage of antimicrobial agents are excreted as active rescues? Listen well, you are correct. Okay. And the right question is 80%. OMG won that round. Which extended spectrum beta-lactam is producing pathogens being studied under the Parasite project? Is it Salmonella, E. coli, Klebsiella, Shigella? Prime site. 10 seconds to answer which extended spectrum beta-lactam is producing pathogen. Okay, right answer is E. coli. And the winner is Arthur is Who's gonna watch that? Ah. And congratulations to
OMG!
OMG. So, congratulations. Thank you for joining our day. Yeah. So if you the shirt doesn't fit, you can keep it outside. Yeah. All right. So thanks very much to our colleagues from FAO, WHO, and RID. Um, Now, last but not the least, we now head to our last topic for today, which I'm pretty sure most of you, all of you, would really also find very useful from what we've already been hearing from this morning. The topic is AMR learning resources for veterinary students. Very apt. So, but for vet professionals, this is just a review. And we'd like to welcome back our project coordinator, Dr. Mary Joy Gordon. Let's give her a hand.
So it's me. Okay, so for this part, and it's going to hold it on quite well. About we'll be breaking down the topics where you can find like basic introduction, laboratory methods, epidemiology, practical and clinical, which will all be important and relevant as you go through this process. Because you are at different year levels, you might find some of the basic stuff more important. But for those who are more advanced, those who are almost graduating, the prudent use you might find more relevant for you. So, this is actually a project I was involved in when I was working at Michigan. This is a project of the Center for Disease Control that we worked on. So we designed this, we named it Antimicrobial Learning Site for veterinarians. You will find the links to this site at the bottom for this one. This actually breaks down the topics into pharmacology, microbiology, public health, and some medicine subjects. The purpose of the site is to so that the topics are integrated conveniently in your learning modules. So these are given in modules, and you can easily download or insert, or some faculty would sometimes use this to integrate them in their class. You can also find some of the animations because I do also animation at so I did a digital comic. The problem here is that when this was developed 10 years ago, so it shows how old I am, because 10 years ago, the system that they developed was in clone. So it was really accessible at that time because they wanted developing countries to be able to access this. Now, because of that, some compatibility issues occurred. And now, of course, you might find it difficult to download the animations, but in case find it difficult, email me and I can send you the link to the digital comic book. So you can see some of the presentations I developed are actually the ones that I showed earlier, but these are digital because you can clearly show the difference when it's normal and it's resistant. So you can also use in your lectures when you become teachers. Now what they did was the hosting institution. More universities joined in, so we collaborated with other universities. And I have moved on to Bangkok, and they actually adopted this in University of Minnesota. So this is the same site, which has more updated backdoor system. So you can have more access. Now this is more active. And if you go here, if you go to this site, they will advise you to go to the Minnesota site because it's one and the same, but this one is composition of different US universities already. So there are more topics, they have added more health, but as you can see, they followed the same topic, they followed the medicine, and they included pet animals. So this, again, you can see here the links at the bottom. So these are basic stuff that you can download. One thing that you can find also, there's a PDF link to the topics. If you find that you don't like to scroll, or if you're like me, you like printed stuff, This one has a PDF at the bottom. It downloads the PDF content of the whole version. So you can see and read it hard copy. So these are specifically for veterinarians. Now, if you want to learn more about laboratory methods and you're more advanced, for example, you're really keen to go to your next level after your vet school or you're going to do physics, you will find this site very useful because it has theory and methods. So it provides you a background on antimicrobials and antimicrobial actions, antimicrobial resistance principles, and also antimicrobial susceptibility testing. Although, of course, as Chulalongkorn University students, you are privileged to be in the Global FAO Reference Center, just announced November 8th. You are here. The reason why we're celebrating, the faculty of the Vet Public Health Department has been designated as FAO Reference Center for AMR, which is a global designation. Something to be proud of. This particular online course teaches about antimicrobial susceptibility testing, so basic and advanced. It teaches you about how to interpret, how to do quality assurance, and other alternatives to ASP, including genomic and specific methods for testing resistance, such as testing for ESBL, testing for carbapanimases, and all of that. And the link is fine. Also, maybe if you're feeling bored with your laboratory or microbiology and far advanced as a student, you might find metagenomics is applied to surveillance of pathogens and AMR. Again, this touches on sampling and sequencing or from reads results and interpretation of sources for metagenomics. This again is developed by the Denmark Technology University, which is a WHO collaborating center. And again, they were also recently announced to be an FAO collaborating center for AMR. And more other advanced topics, bacterial genomes, this is outbreaks in AMR. If you're interested on how these are understood from the context of why this is caused bacteria, what bacterial genomes look like, genome sequencing technology, mechanisms of transmission and resistance, genomic epidemiology, and antimicrobial resistance. So the antimicrobial resistance component really talks more about the outbreaks, so you can understand what is like VRSA or VRE or all this, what's the impact of antimicrobial resistance in the context of outbreaks. Because sometimes antimicrobial resistance, the issue also is that when it occurs in the hospitals, it tends to spread right away in an outbreak format. So this will help you understand, particularly at the molecular level, on bacterial genomes and why this is. Again, the links are here. And of course, when you want to understand epidemiology, not everything is through online courses. There are also hard copy materials that are available again online. You are such a lucky generation, because during our time, we have to go to the library, look for the index card number, go to that library section, find the hard copy of the book, and access it. That's how we do library research back in the day. But now you can just Google, link, and you find this, and it's really downloadable. The whole hard copy material is really downloadable if you go to its site. So basically, this provides a brief information on the context of epidemiology specific to AMR in animal production. It talks about emergence of AMR in bacteria, relevance of animal production in the emergence of antimicrobial resistance. So it's very veterinary compared to the other sites. I think one thing that you should be aware of, there are many sites available online. However, you have to also be sure that what you're looking at are from the veterinary context, because sometimes the interpretations will be different. In a way that, for example, infection prevention and control principles would be the same. But of course, what you would appreciate as veterinarians would be in the context of farm, would be in the context of herd, not individual persons. So I think that it is very important that when you're curious to learn, you put things in context. So this is why we are listing some of those that are very relevant to your course and to your future profession. So this includes mechanisms of spread of AMR between animals and humans. Very interesting part because this allows you to understand what is the significance of AMR arising in the animal population and what is its impact in the human population, and some recommendations. If you want to understand AMR in the food chain, if you're, for example, livestock, so you can look at AMR in the food chain. Again, this is a free course. I've just selected the free courses. Some of them have credits. You can choose to have a credit. You can even have a certificate. This talks about antimicrobial agents and the basic controls for the basis of controls for antimicrobial usage. AMU in the animal food chain. When you say food chain, this means production from farm to table. So maybe in some context, from farm to chopsticks, farm to hand, or whichever culture you set it in. But this is basically the food chain from animal production. And for us veterinarians, our concern, of course, is the food chain lies mainly in the production part, but that doesn't mean that we cannot be connected down the line. It also talks about causal effect of antibiotic use in animal production and resistance development, and epidemiological links between use in animal and public health, the environmental impact of antibiotic use in livestock, and some of the current policies and legislation outside of Asia. Proposed future legislation and impact on global trade and supply chain, and good practices in the industry. So these are courses that you can take. It's 3 hours per week of your time. Maybe less Facebook, more lectures. This is pretty much the number of hours you spend on Facebook in a day. And again, antimicrobial stewardship in veterinary practice. Again, the links are shown here. I made it white, but it reverted back to the hyperlink. So this one is antimicrobial stewardship in veterinary practice, and it talks about risk for and mechanisms of antimicrobial resistance, veterinary prescribing behavior for AMU, as well as antimicrobial usage, antimicrobial resistance. And then species-specific challenges to good antimicrobial stewardship. So it talks about poultry, it talks about swine, what about pets. So because these are taken, understand that for this different species, for humans it's easy. They have one species. That's it. For us, it's different every time. It's different when you're dealing with the horses, which is a monogastric. When you're dealing with the ruminant, the 4 compartments of the stomach, when you're dealing with a pet, it's different. And you have to understand also that the pharmacodynamic, pharmacokinetics will be different for each species. It's a nightmare to do a surveillance when you're a veterinarian because you have to factor this in. The way that drugs travel will be different in each animal. The way that chickens, the way that when you give antibiotic to chickens, because they have a different physiology, they will have a different pharmacodynamic and pharmacokinetic mechanisms. The way that the drug will travel in the system of a chicken will be different when you look at the way that drugs travel in a pig or a cow. So these are factors that you have to consider when you're looking at treatment as well. When you're treating mastitis, before it reaches the mammary gland, you have to factor in the way that it will travel before it reaches there. So that's why this has to be species specific. Clinical governance and monitoring antimicrobial resistance patterns, evidence-based veterinary medicine and best practice prescribing, as well as antimicrobial stewardship practice, strategies for motivating changes or for responsible antimicrobial usage. Sometimes countries do this through governance, through legislation, through legal tools, but it's difficult to force people to do things. It's easier when you yourself, as a practitioner, will be convinced of what is right and what is wrong as a practice, and how you can factor in effective treatment, good economics, as well as public health concern. There's also a free lecture on effective livestock production with low use of antibiotics. There is a trend now to be, going organic. You also have to consider what are the consequences of going organic. This does not necessarily automatically mean good practices, especially when the conditions are bad. In a region like Asia, one other concern that we have is not only infection with bacteria, but also parasites. So when we do organic farming, what would be the consequence of having such a huge parasitic load in the farm when you are not feeding when you're feeding this cycle in that way? I think these are the things that we need to factor in. It doesn't necessarily mean, but when you lower the use of antibiotics, that's already good practice. You have to factor in that hygiene, biosecurity, good practices. These are all part and parcel of the package. It doesn't necessarily equate that if you don't use antibiotics or you reduce the antibiotic load in your farm, that you're already doing good. You have to be a good veterinarian to be able to say that you are contributing. So this particular learning site talks about what antibiotics are, what they are used for. It talks about antibiotic resistance, its development, and why it is a problem. It talks about basis of infectious disease prevention, because this will be your, as future veterinarians or as veterinarians, this will be our core responsibility to the world. How to prevent and control disease. And economic possibilities in in farm practices, it doesn't necessarily mean reducing or removing antibiotic use. And I guess the reality is, it takes more than just reducing the use to be effective, because we might predispose the animals for not only that you are not treating effectively, but also when you are suddenly removing things without correcting other aspects of your practice, you might be predisposing them to higher level antibiotics. So eventually, this is what they are finding in some countries. When they remove the low dose antibiotics, what happens is that more clinically important antibiotics for animals are being used, because there is this balance that you have to strike. So I think it takes more than just removing antibiotics. So make sure that when you do any action, this is based on science and this is based on weighing all the risks. A good thinking of weighing the risks on your hand as veterinarian. Are you going to spread the disease by removing this, or are you going to have an impact in the earning of the farm, or will there be bigger consequences? You might end up needing more antibiotics because you need to treat the animals in a different way. So, proven and efficient use of antimicrobials in pig and poultry. This is another FAO publication. Again, this is not a course. This is a document that you can freely download here from this site. And it talks about prevention of infectious diseases without antibiotics and how to use antibiotics in a proven and medically efficient way. It talks about practical recommendations on how to combine prudent use with preventive measures for productivity and the challenge, the One Health challenge. So I guess these are just some of the veterinary learning resources. Don't be overwhelmed, because I'm sure you have other exams on the pipeline. But this will be some of the resources that you will find very useful when you start going into practice. And I think this will be the last slide. This is tackling the AMU and AMR in pig production. This is actually a case presentation in the more successful in mitigating antimicrobial resistance, antimicrobial resistance, how they have done this, and how they have involved the private sector to be successful. So I guess this also provides you the context that this is addressing AMR in livestock is not something that one man job or one woman job in that matter, for that matter. It takes community, it takes private sector, it takes the government, it takes all aspects of all stakeholders being involved. And eventually you will find yourself as one of the critical stakeholders in this complex web by doing your part, this is the way that we can address AMR from the veterinary. So it talks about how they did and what they have achieved. So including future initiatives to lower antimicrobial use and key factors for delivering success and testing. This is just some extra. If you like something fun and if you like something like if you're teaching high school students, there's an EBUG resource where it's very generic. There's different stages, junior, senior, young, adult. It talks about infections and infectious diseases as well, not only antimicrobial. So these are the others. And again, global health security is a shared responsibility. I think as early as now, it's something that should be planted in your head. And as a future veterinarian, this is something that you'll be part of. You'll be part of protecting global health in the future. So with that, and hopefully someday you will be part of us, talking to students, and it's a nice 180-degree coming back and sharing the experiences that has been done in the future. Maybe in your practice, whichever path you may choose to go, hopefully AMR will be less of a problem by the time that your generation stands. And we talk about when I was in secondary college, they were worried, but now it's okay. So because we've done our part. So this is basic lessons and basic resources for AMR for veterinary students.
Alright. So if you would like a copy of the materials that she's presenting, we can send you a PowerPoint, a copy of the PowerPoints. Please do check the postcard that is being distributed outside. You can also access the QR codes for some of our publications there. Otherwise, our email is in the postcard. You can email us at faorap-antimicrobial-